Welcome back to the penultimate episode. This is one more time we have to get on here and talk about our intrepid, insipid teams before the stupid season is over.
I'll be honest, mate. If I'm in the Ringo next week, today's gonna be the last show. You won't see me for 6 months.
Are you serious? You won't appear?
I'm going into hiding if I'm in the Ringo, mate.
Oh, and you know what's really interesting about the Ringo matchup? Stu might get one of his random wins against Tyson.
Stu's a sneaky chance to avoid it, which would be a massive injustice. But here we are. That's fantasy, mate.
You don't want to no, I don't think either of us want to be going against Tyson next week.
No way.
That's a brutal outcome. Well, it's already started. There's a lot of games going on earlier today, and we're seeing a lot of trigger points. I think let's just eulogize those that went out last week. We saw the end, of course, of Carter's reign of terror. You predicted earlier on in the year that he had history against him and he could not win after being on top for so long.
Is it a prediction when it happens 100% of the time, Kingmaker?
Isn't that kind of happened once? It was okay, like one time.
Nah, nobody can sustain that level of dominance throughout 17 weeks in fantasy. It's just impossible.
I would like to note that while I did lose the Heron Ball last year, I lost by 1 touchdown and did hold it together for most of the year.
Fantastic.
I think what kills you is the injuries. Like, the reason you're dominating early is because you're avoiding the injuries, and eventually you get hit. Like, it's just the fact of NFL. You can't have an injury-free season. No one gets through without a key player getting injured.
By the way, shout out to anybody else who was hoping to watch the Chiefs game this morning, which was not on TV, it seemed.
Interesting. What was that?
Unless you've got like bloody NFL Game Pass or whatever. But no, it wasn't on like ESPN or Channel 7 or anything else, as far as I could tell.
No. I have the Game Pass, as you would anticipate. Because, money bags.
Of course you did, money bags.
Money bags. And the other person who's gone out is Jono, and no one shed a tear.
Honestly, like, not a bad week for dispensing with some people that I really didn't want to win the championship. No massive amount of disrespect to both of those guys. They're good competitors, but I didn't really want to see either of them win a second championship. So.
Correct. And then on the other side of the coin absolutely tore Tyson a new one to end his potential chance at another Ringo. And Matty Brown also set a team this year and got himself out of the Ringo bracket quickly.
Top scoring team in the first round of the postseason.
He was wanting to show you he was very serious about the Ringo this year, but he didn't want to repeat of last year.
You know what? I know he doesn't watch this, but like, you are now allowed to not set lineups. I don't care what happens for the rest of the. Like, no one cares. No one cares what happens in the 9th place playoff.
Oh, doesn't Kurt argue that people give a shit about this? No one does. No one does. Yeah. Okay, so now on to the matchups that matter. The big daddy of them all, me versus you, in who gets to play in the Ringo next week. And it's starting off well.
Not off to a good start for me. So.
Mahomes looking good. Worst tight end in the history of the world, according to Tex. Mark Andrews looking good. So see how it goes.
Both Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers had incredible games today. The two cast-offs from Texas' team early in the season.
He says he stands by. He doesn't need them, and he doesn't want them on his squad. And who am I to say he's wrong? He's vying for a spot in the Heron Ball right now.
So the biggest consternation I have this week is like. So Tyreek Hill is questionable with some personal circumstances that the Dolphins don't feel the need to disclose to fantasy owners. So he's like game time, whether he shows up, and if he shows up, does he get arrested and whatever else. And if he plays, I really want him out there. Like Waddle's out, so you'd think it'd be a smash spot for Tyreek, but I'm very nervous about it.
Mostly you've got a subset. So, if elite wide receiver of all time, GOAT, Tyreek Hill doesn't come in, you are going to be playing...
We're playing Dr. Strange.
Dr. Strange.
who had a huge game for Jacksonville last week, can I just say?
Isn't he like... Is Ingram not playing, or is this a second
Ingram's out for the year, so this guy's come in and taken over. Honestly, I
the-
wouldn't be chucking him in there, but yeah.
The backup tight end being thrown by the backup quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars is
Yeah, buddy.
exactly the sub you want for Tyreek Hill, like for like.
Hell yeah, let's go.
All right.
No,
Now
I'm feeling pretty negative about it. I think it's and I think I probably have come around to the fact that I deserve to be in the Ringo. It's been a pretty appalling year, so made peace with it.
why do you think that is? Like, do you feel like you didn't do enough to salvage your season when it was going wrong? Where maybe I've done a better job at salvaging my season with some moves?
No, I don't think you've done a better job. I think the players that you've got have come good down the stretch in a way that mine haven't.
I don't know. I picked
I
Jerry
also,
Judy and Thielen off the waiver.
yeah, I mean, my roster is okay. It's just it's been the same problem all year. It's like it's got a real limited ceiling. So it's like you can't. It's hard to justify dumping anybody off of the roster because they're all getting out there and making plays every week, but it's like 10 to 12 points from all of them week on week, which is just not good enough.
Well, as we now finish with that, I'm sure people are more interested in hearing about the actual matchups that people care about, the ones that determine who is going to be in next week's Heroin Bowl, the 12th Heroin Bowl. And we have two really interesting matchups of, if I get the league matchup. First, we have Jared against Kurt. And obviously, everyone's fan favorite in this is on Jared to win. Jared, of course, is one of the two coaches in this league that's been in it for a long period of time and has never made it to the Heron Bowl. It's himself and Stu. Obviously, people like Tyson that are newer have not made it. But Jared's been in the league the entire time and has never made it. And, of course, Kurt has been in 4 Heron Bowls and won them all.
Indeed. Could actually be a historic one. We could have like I think the best case scenario is we could possibly have two potential first time winners.
Yeah, Jared and Andy.
We'll get to Andy shortly, but yeah, I think like again, all due respect to the Quadfather, I think that most of the league just impartially is really behind this Jared story. They've seen the enthusiasm and the engagement from him this year, and he's really pumped up and he's up and about, but he's never been arrogant about it. So I think everyone wants to see him get there. He has suffered some late setbacks. The RB tandem from Detroit that he was able to roll out all year has finally fallen apart. So all the speculation around whether one is just as good as two in that setup, we're about to find out whether that's how true that is.
It's I think the reason that he hasn't been arrogant about it is because he's in just utter disbelief that this is happening. Like he's just waiting for that moment where Stamos turns around and takes a giant dump on him, and it hasn't quite happened yet. But maybe
he better hope that Stamos doesn't remember some of the things that he said about him in the past.
Would you like to consider Jared's team or Kurt's team?
I'll have a look at Jared's team. So Tua has been, as you are well aware, pretty bad just recently. He's had some decent stretches throughout the year, but last month or so, pretty awful. And San Francisco is one of those teams that people keep wanting to write off. Like they're not making the playoffs, but every week they still come out there and play like their season's on the line. So I don't consider this a soft matchup at all. So I don't actually love the spot there for Tua any more than I love it for Tyreek Hill.
Especially without Waddle as well. If Hill's not playing,
it's gonna and so like it's kind of if Hill was out, I would almost be like scouring the waiver wire to see can I put someone other than Tua in. What's his second option? He's got Drake May. I actually, honest to God, I would consider if Tyreek is out and Waddle's out, I'd consider Drake May versus Buffalo. Again, not an appetizing matchup, but the Buffalo defense did give up like 40 plus to the Rams a couple of weeks ago. So yeah. not feeling great about Tua. Ty Johnson. Is it Ty Johnson? Have I got that right? Is the man's name Ty?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
Ty
Ty.
Johnson. Yeah. Probably not an option that you feel fantastic about, but he's in there obviously because of the big David Montgomery injury. Having said that, he should get some work in what's probably predicted to be a pretty dour, kind of low-scoring, snowy December affair in the AFC East. Those matches typically are. Jahmyr Gibbs, kind of widely ranked as the top running back in fantasy this week. Obviously, expecting a massive workload in a divisional game where there's no love lost. Detroit, you can probably expect them to get out to a lead and then lean on Gibbs to hold on to it. So yeah, that projection of 20 points is pretty bullish, but I think it's well within the realm of possibility. I think fantasy owners will be looking for a big one from Gibbs. Brian Thomas. God, again, I hope it's Brian. This is the kind of thing in past years that I was all over. Yeah, Brian Thomas. He's the rookie receiver for the Jags. Yeah, so that's a good spot. The Las Vegas defense is nothing to write home about. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I'd be feeling very good about versus Chicago. Jonnu Smith. Now, having just gotten done pissing on Tua's grave, I actually think Jonnu Smith has been an amazing pickup this year. I don't know where he ranks, but he's got to be up there in like the top couple of tight ends in fantasy.
He's number 4.
Number 4, yeah. And he started slow as well.
That's 4 is basically over the last, since the bye, basically.
Yeah. So this is one where you actually feel pretty good about him if Tyreek Hill and Waddle are out, because it's like, who else is going to catch passes? But
he's the guy.
That's
Washington. That's who's going to get it. Malik Washington.
Yeah. It's a bit of a crutchy argument though, because Tyreek Hill, just having him on the field opens up a lot of opportunities for other receivers. So I think on balance, you'd rather have their best team out there. But yeah, Jonnu Smith has been one of the highlights and one of the real surprise breakouts for fantasy this year. So I think you'd feel pretty good about rolling him out there. And how about backing him up with
as a 20-year-old veteran? It's quite the breakout. He's an old man.
Well, yeah, but he's never been good.
No,
that's my point, right? He's never been a fantasy factor up until this season. And yeah, you want to talk about like your 1-2 tandem, Brock Bowers, like what an unbelievable season he's having as a rookie over there in Vegas. Yeah, number 1. I don't know if he's the number 1 tight end in all formats or if it's just our weird format.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's unbelievable. Geno Smith versus Minnesota is a kind of a middling play. You don't feel great about it, but you're also not dreading it either. He should put up some numbers. I cannot tell you a single thing about Giga Chad Ryland, other than the fact that he's apparently a kicker for Arizona. And they're going to Carolina, where presumably there'll be some points scored because Carolina aren't very good.
And it looks like he used to be on the New England roster.
The uniform would suggest as such, yeah. Poor kickers, they never update their photo on this thing when they change teams during the season.
Even Fairbairn has the Atlanta jersey. He's been on the Texans for 2 years.
I guess probably at the moment, unless he's planning on making some changes, this is one of the most controversial choices out there. Miami defense versus San Francisco. I don't know what's going on here.
Go on there. Who's he got? He's got no other defense. What is he doing?
Maybe hit up the waivers, mate, because I reckon there's at least 15 teams out there that I'd feel better about rolling out than Miami versus San Fran. Yeah.
He's going to be regretting not having started Tank Dell today.
Tank Dell was going to be regretting having played at all today. Did you see what happened to him?
No, is he dead?
He's like an extremely gruesome injury. If you're into that sort of thing, you can look up the highlights. But he went to hospital and he's not going to play again for quite some time.
But it's just a sad for Jared though, and also not showing Justin Tucker. Interesting call as well.
I mean, Justin Tucker's been pretty dicey, but yeah, he's back in form today, obviously.
But there's no name kicker. I'm back in this time.
He really wanted the Giga Chad out there.
Okay. On the other side, Kurt's team, Baker Mayfield has continued to be a solid performer despite all errors the contrary. I think this game is a good game for Ramondre. It's going to be a cold game up in it's not snowing according to this graphic, but it's cold, it's divisional, but it's meaningless. So you just assume that Ramondre is going to grind out a lot of possessions against Buffalo. Rashad White has been solid all this year. Chase, you're expecting a big game against state rivals Cleveland and Cincinnati. That's always a very significant matchup where they very much want to win. So I would expect Chase to have a big game. Though the interesting about Chase, his stats are infinitely better when he plays in prime time than when he plays in the 4:30 slot. So if he plays in a dedicated slot, a night game, a Thursday night, a Monday night, he's way better than when he plays in this slot. So I don't know if that's a factor of just him being a primetime guy. How's CeeDee Lamb been since the Dak Prescott went out? Solid. Pretty solid, actually.
He's been good. Yeah, turns out he doesn't matter who throws him the ball. So
yeah. And Garrett Wilson's Rodgers has been a bit on a tear of late. He's been better. So
yeah, he's promoting that Netflix doco that's coming out later in the year.
Keenan Allen, you got Sam Darnold against Seattle in a wet game. It should be good. He's got Fairbairn, as we mentioned. The Atlanta against the New York Giants. That's got to be a good start.
Yep.
He's stashing some good guys. I get Kurt's got the next in line for San Francisco after the third string got injured. I believe that's who Taylor is. They're not starting him. He's stashing him.
Is there not an argument to start this guy? Kurt's running backs aren't that good.
Ramondre and Rashad White.
I reckon Kurt will be stewing over whether to put that guy in the lineup.
Well, maybe it's in this slot. Garrett Wilson here and not play Keenan Allen. Yeah, that's what you're thinking about, right? Garrett there.
He'll be losing sleep over that tonight. Now that I've mentioned it,
because this guy, look at the prediction. Isn't Kurt the one who said literally in the chat, it doesn't matter who they are, just next in line for the San Francisco.
It's always been that way.
Yeah. And it's been proven this year. Guerrero was just as good as the other two when he had the sole job. He's also starting at the bench and not parting Laporta. Been a disappointing draft pick for him. I feel like Jared's going to need to do something. I feel like it's going to go Kurt's way, but I really don't want that to happen. I feel like it needs to break Jared's way. Like Tua needs a good game or something.
I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be close and probably not massively high scoring.
Yeah. Well, as predicted by Sleeper, 121.2 to 121.64. It's predicted to be exactly as you say, with Kurt narrowly getting the chocolates. We'll be going for his 5th Heron Bowl, but we're all behind Jared in the Gold Coast draft. So let's see that happen. Now we go back to Andy and Tex. Once again, Andy has been in 2 Heron Bowls. He's lost them both. Tex, on the other hand, has also been in 2 and won them both. So it's another situation of everyone would like to see Andy in there. Although a Tex versus Jared outcome would be great because then Tex can claim victory no matter what happens.
It seems like every week on this show, you're just baiting him.
Well, he got really fired up last week. Like, just to put this in context, about the wall of text. Now, you're the one who mentioned the wall of text, right? I just want to say that. You said the wall of text.
I mentioned it. I mentioned it affectionately. I enjoy the wall of text.
The wall of text is great. And yes, it shows that you're participating and watching the show. I love that. We do love that. That's fantastic. But I also often feel the wall of text is quite assertively aggressive and attacking. And that's fine too. That's all part of the fun. But I'm allowed to then not enjoy the wall.
He doesn't like you.
What? I get that, yeah. It doesn't like me. He hasn't liked me since I harassed him about the belt on his birthday. He just hasn't liked me since that happened.
I'm not sure he was a massive fan before that, but I think that was the final straw. I think
it was.
Yeah.
So while I enjoy the wall of text, it's generally pretty anti-me and my opinions. So I appreciate it, but I don't necessarily enjoy it. I do appreciate it.
Shout out to Tex for hate watching this show for 16 consecutive weeks this season.
So anyway, on with the show. Do you want to do Tex or Andy? I think I should do Andy because otherwise Tex is going to hate
we won't poke the bear anymore. You can start with talking about Andy's team.
He's got Joe Burrow against Cleveland, as I mentioned, that's an incredibly good matchup because they'll go hard on it.
Yep.
We've got Bijan Robinson, who's, he's been what everyone wanted him to be. He's like a top 10 running back. You drafted him as a top 10 running back, particularly in our league with 2 QBs. He's probably delivered on the air, hasn't been injured. He's played every game, been really solid. Nothing to write home about in terms of, huge scores, but just a really solid contributor if you had him all year.
This is a
He's
good spot
got
for him against the Giants, yeah.
Yeah. He's got Ford back in the lineup. What's happened to what's his name? Is he out now? Chubb. Is Chubb out?
Yep.
Yeah. Perfect. Fantastic for him. I don't know if I would have started Cortland Sutton, but it's already happened and it is where it is. He's put up a fairly mediocre score that Tex will be licking his lips about. Calvin Ridley against Indiana. How's Ridley been this year? 30th wide receiver. He's not amazing.
Boom or bust, basically.
Yeah. That's a real oof. I don't love that. Let's see if there's someone better he could be putting in. Brian Robinson's been an absolute steal this year where you would have got him in the draft. He's been absolutely great. I believe this Washington matchup, this Philadelphia matchup is pretty tough. They're one of the better defenses.
You know what's surprisingly good for NFL players is getting shot.
But they bounce back.
Yeah, I mean, he's been amazing. Old mate, the receiver in San Fran's had a really strong season after getting shot early on.
Yeah.
Might suggest that some of my guys take a bullet.
Metcalf, he's continued to do Metcalf things. A good start here with Herbert.
Yeah.
Be happy with that 22.16. And look, you're not riding home at 7 points from a kicker, but that's about the line that you're happy with. You don't want a 3 or a 4.
It's well down on what Boswell's been doing. He's been the number 1 kicker in fantasy last month or so.
He's picked up Penix. I don't know if this was probably more of a strategy. Now, we should note that Andy spent basically all his fab this week. He had 3 spread bids of $20 on all of the players worth getting. And I think they were more of a aggressive play to save your fab and then make sure your opponents can't get the players. For example, Tex, who's been a little bit tight end needy. Look, he's got Goff and Allen, but he's quarterback needy if one of those went down, and he's got Thompson Robinson. God, that's a mouthful. But Andy's grabbed Penix. That's a great position to be in. And if Penix goes off this week, and you probably still wouldn't start him, but there's an option there if he gets a player injured. He's in a good position. He obviously lost Garendo. Kamara's out, which is not great. Algier is just the backup. Condre, he's got Miller. Condre, I wonder if you'd be starting a Condre Miller without Kamara in one of these slots, but probably not. Probably not. And I wonder if a Hawkinson would be better than, if I move Metcalf into Ridley and play Hawkinson. How's he been good since he came back? Has he been good? It's a tough one. I reckon I'll be going there, but that is a borderline call. But he's started well, and he's going to be licking his lips with that Herbert score. Sutton's okay, but it could be interesting where that goes from there. Do you want to talk about Tex?
Yes, so there was actually a fair bit of speculation last week around whether or not Josh Allen versus New England in a crucial spot was a good play or not. Traditionally you might look at it and go, well, yeah, these are off. These December AFC East divisional games are off from pretty low scoring affairs. But as Trex correctly pointed out, Josh Allen is powering his way towards the MVP, so he's probably not likely to take his foot off the pedal. And the Bills.
He also gets a bonus, I'm told.
Yeah, okay.
$1.5 million bonus if he gets MVP.
There's also the fact that the Bills have been absolutely owned by the Patriots for essentially the last 20 plus years. So they're going to have something to prove to their fan base. So I reckon you could see some fireworks here. Kenny Walker against Minnesota. He's been good all year. Jonathan Taylor, that's a good spot versus Tennessee. That's probably one where Indianapolis should be in an ideal situation to just sit back and defend the lead and just keep pounding it in with JT. Cooper Kupp headed over to the New York Jets. Rams offense has been pretty potent lately, so you probably feel quite good about that. The Jets are, despite on paper having an amazing roster, just continue to find ways to be absolutely terrible. So I'd probably be feeling pretty good about that. JSN. So he's got two critical pieces of the Seattle offense heading into this game against Minnesota, where I feel like there's actually a fair bit on the line for Seattle. So I'd feel pretty good about that. They should be putting their strongest effort forward. Bucky Irving. I don't know a lot about Bucky Irving. He's like the second running back on Tampa Bay.
Yeah, there was a bit of hype about him earlier in the season if he could get the job by himself, which he hasn't been able to secure. But there's a couple of booms there. I would question if those matchups had Rashad White was maybe not playing. But yeah, he's a rookie, and there was a bit of hype about him if he could get the job by himself. But he is still sharing.
Okay. Well, he's going against Texas' beloved Cowboys, so it'll be bittersweet if he goes out there and scores 3 touchdowns against them. Jamison Williams, who I can't substantiate this, but I feel like I had him on my roster at some point this year. I might be confusing him with someone else, but he's been...
No, you didn't.
No, maybe I was thinking of a different random...
Texas had him all year.
Receiver with a similar name. I think there's a guy on the Vikings with the same name. He's been really good. Yeah, and any piece of that Detroit offense has been fantasy gold this year. So Tex will be rolling him out with confidence, and obviously looking for some juicy double plays with his old mate Goff in at quarterback. Brandon Aubrey, the shine's come off Brandon Aubrey this year, hasn't it? Remember, he was like the MVP of fantasy last year.
Yeah,
definitely fallen off, but still as good a play as any at the kicker spot. And then the Detroit defense, who as a unit are not elite, but I would happily play any defense against the absolutely miserable, pathetic, hopeless Chicago Bears.
I'd have to say the dream outcome for the league is obviously Andy versus Jared, but probably the dream outcome for people that want to watch that Detroit game, which is on a reasonable time on the 30th of December, I believe, is probably Jared versus Tex, because there's a lot of Detroit between the two of them, and it makes for good watching.
I mean, between the two of them, they basically own the entire, every fantasy relevant player there is to have on the Lions, right?
Except for Kurt, who's benching Laporta.
Well, is Laporta fantasy relevant? I would argue maybe not.
No, doesn't seem like it. And then he's just got a bunch of guys that you wouldn't be starting.
Dorian Thompson Robinson sounds like a law firm.
I know, it is the law firm. It's not as good as Ben Jarvis Green Ellis, though, but it is. And then he's got 2 defenses. That may be a stash for next week. He's prepping his options. But you're right, the Detroit matchup here is the one to go with. I feel like, I've been counting Tex out all year. Apparently, I said he'd finish 8th. And you know what? I'm going to be consistent. So I'm going with Andy here. He's going to get the win.
I'm predicting Tex is going to win.
Well, there we go. So, final. Now, you say you're not coming in through the Ringo. I thought we were going to run through all of the, the where the scores are at for the picks next year.
What's that? I'm sorry, you're breaking up.
Come on.
Oh, right. Right, yeah, I know what you mean. The predictions thing. Yeah, I honest to God, I have not looked at it since we did it. You know what's funny is that Jared refused to participate or just blanked on participating, and he could be about to go to the championship game and win it, and then back it up by having the 12th draft pick next year because he didn't.
Which is what he had this year. He loves that pick. He loves that 12th pick. It's his favorite place to draft from.
I'm not making any guarantees about whether or not I'll appear next week. Sorry, I might be drinking myself into a miserable stupor.
It's got to be depending upon whether you're paying Tyson or Stu, because they're different circumstances. Anyway, with that, done. Now we have, you say no one cares about the wrestling video. I would say half the league cares about the wrestling video. Carter made that very clear when he told Tex to suck it, the DX reference.
Can you list the half of the league that cares about it?
Me?
Yes.
Carter?
Yeah.
Jono?
Jono likes it, yeah. Because he's a
James?
man child.
James?
If James likes it, you might want to let him know to like jump in and defend you because he's not said anything about it.
He never feels the need to defend me. But James? I think Kurt has a passing interest. And I think Jared enjoyed when I did the Sexy Boy video. So I'm going with those 6.
All right. Well, the good news is that we are apparently at the end of this controversial segment. So let's get it over with.
Last one, Carter's song. I was hoping he'd be in this week, but he's not. So, sorry, this is your eulogy, mate. When I find where's the bloody thing? Sorry, struggling with the. Here we go. This is for you, Carter. This is the last one. This is your eulogy.
Television has a poison on its breath. This counterculture of both wicked lies and death. It makes my eyes bleed every time I turn around. How will they all feel when I bring them to the ground? And I say, I walk for miles inside this pit of danger, a place where no one follows me. I walk alone.
Anyway, I got nothing. That was just one I phoned in. I was running out of names. I couldn't find one for Carter. That's what he gets.
You want to give an explanation as to why he gets that?
I just said, like, I was out of songs.
You really limped across the line with this segment, I'll be honest.
I didn't plan it well, I have to say. I had some good ones and some like ones that just sort of fit in. And yeah, fortunately, that's what you get, Carter. I was hoping you'd be here and you're not. But that's your eulogy. Condolences. We'll be back next.
Whose intro music was that, by the way?
Batista.
Batista. Of Marvel Cinematic Universe fame.
Correct. Yes. So maybe the Bard's here next week. If he's not here, that means I am not in the Ringo. So I'll be here, and I will try and get, of course. If Bard's here too, we would love to get the 2 people in the Heroin Bowl on the show, like we did last year. That was good value.
Did we?
Yeah. Well, we just got Tex on, and I was already on.
Oh, of course. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I think 4 people would be a bit chaotic. Another good reason for me not to be here.
Well, it will only be 3 for the Ringo Bowl coverage, so that's something.
No one wants Ringo Bowl coverage, mate.
We get Stu to show up on this show.
You won't get him to show up. He doesn't even know how to operate a computer.
Can he get onto the live segment? I don't think so. But tune in next week to find out for the final Talking Domination of the year. Is the Bard there? I don't know, but I'll be there. And till then, we will see you.